You open your eyes. Or rather, you force them open, because they are caked shut with the viscous fluid of your own creation. The world is a dim, red, suffocating place. There is pressure, a claustrophobic weight that has defined the entirety of your existence. You have no concept of self, no memory, only a singular, driving instinct that screams at you from the deepest recess of your nascent mind. Out. You push. You strain against the curved walls of your prison, your unformed muscles quivering with the effort. A crack appears, a brilliant, blinding line of light in the crimson darkness. It's the first thing you have ever truly seen, and it is terrifying. You press your beak, still soft and fragile, into the fissure and heave. The world splinters. Ah, consciousness returns. Welcome to the stage, nature's most absurd overachievement. Your official designation is Quetzalcoatlus Northropi, a name that sounds suitably grand, suitably epic, for a creature of your eventual proportions. But to the world that will invent words just to describe you, you are simply Quetzalcoatlus, a name borrowed from an Aztec god, a feathered serpent deity of the sky. It's a tragically poetic misnomer. For one, you have no feathers. You are a creature of skin and bone and leathery membrane. And two, your life, as we are about to see in excruciating detail, will be anything but divine. You have just been born, or hatched, to be precise. And your nursery is a masterpiece of biological indifference. It is a vast, sun-blasted plain in what will one day, many millions of years from now, be called Texas. This isn't some cozy, lovingly woven nest. It's a rookery. Think of it as a sprawling, open-air slum city, stretching for acres, populated by thousands upon thousands of your kind. The air is thick with the smell of baked earth, pungent ammonia from the waste of the colony, and the faint, sickly sweet perfume of decay. That last smell is from the unsuccessful, the ones who didn't make it out of the egg or didn't last the first 5 minutes. They are your first neighbors. Get used to the smell. Where are your parents? They are somewhere overhead, circling on the thermals, utterly oblivious to your grand debut. Your mother located this patch of dirt, deposited you as an unthinking biological imperative, and promptly delegated all further responsibility to the merciless laws of probability. Parental affection is a luxury, an inefficient use of energy. And you, my friend, are the end product of a lineage that has ruthlessly eliminated such frivolities. You are sticky, pathetic, and shivering, even in the oppressive heat. Your first sensation of the outside world is the frantic, desperate sound of pecking all around you. It isn't a welcoming chorus. It is the sound of your siblings, your clutch mates, furiously trying to escape their own shells. They are not your friends. They are your competition. The first danger you will ever face is not some hulking predator. It is the creature that gestated inches from you, the one who shares your exact genetic heritage. Your own family. A shadow falls over you. It is vast, blotting out the cruel sun for a moment. You don't have the cognitive capacity for awe, but you feel a primal shudder of instinct. A parent has returned, but it has not returned for you. It lands with a heavy, earth-shaking thud, its massive head, the size of a small man, peering down with eyes as vacant and emotionless as polished stones. It opens its enormous, toothless beak and unceremoniously drops a mangled, bloody carcass into the center of the nest site. It's some sort of small, furry proto-mammal, its life extinguished so that yours might, theoretically, continue. And with that, the race begins. It's a riot. A mad, desperate scramble for protein. Your siblings, now freed from their eggs, surge forward. Some are bigger. Some were just born a few minutes earlier and have had more time to get their wobbly legs under them. They shove you aside without a thought. They peck and jostle. This isn't a family meal. It's a battlefield. Your first lesson is etched into your very being with the sharp pang of hunger. You are utterly, unequivocally alone, and survival is not a guarantee. It's a scrap you have to win every single time. You manage to tear off a tiny shred of bloody flesh, your first meal, and it tastes like victory. A small, fleeting, and deeply unsatisfying victory. This is your life now. A series of these tiny, desperate wins, strung together against a backdrop of overwhelming indifference. Enjoy the moment. It won't last. Your first few months are a blur of indignity and terror. You are a walking contradiction, a creature destined for gigantism that is currently the perfect, snack-sized meal for a dozen different predators. You are all disproportionate limbs and pitifully inadequate wings. Your body is a blueprint for future majesty, but in the present, it's an awkward, clumsy liability. Your primary tormentors are the dromaeosaurs, a particularly nasty branch of the dinosaur family tree. Think of them as land piranhas, covered in a ragged coat of protofeathers, with brains just large enough for coordinated malice and a sickle-shaped claw on each foot that they seem overly eager to use. They are the hyenas of the Cretaceous, and you are the lost, stumbling calf. They don't even grant you the dignity of a noble chase. They harry you, nip at your heels, darting in and out with terrifying speed. They see you not as a fellow creature, but as a self-propelled sack of meat, and their entire goal is to hamstring you, to bring your lanky, awkward form crashing to the ground before you can even think about getting airborne. They hunt in chattering, intelligent packs, their bird-like eyes gleaming with a predatory calculus that you are simply too young and too stupid to comprehend. They are a constant, lurking presence at the edge of the rookery, waiting for a moment of inattention, a slight stumble, a juvenile who wandered just a little too far from the chaotic safety of the crowd. What is your grand survival strategy against these razor-footed nightmares? What cunning defense has evolution bestowed upon you? None. Your only option is to flee, and you are terrible at it. You can fly, theoretically. Your wings, vast leathery membranes stretched over impossibly long fingers, are there. But learning to use them is not an elegant process. It is a series of panicked, flailing launches that are less majestic takeoff and more cat falling out of a tree. You have to vault yourself into the air from a four-legged stance, a complex biomechanical feat that you have to master while a feathered demon is trying to slice your Achilles tendon. Your takeoff is like trying to start a deeply unreliable, experimental aircraft designed by a madman. It's a chaotic jumble of flapping, vaulting, and desperate hope. It might work. You might catch a gust of wind and lurch into the sky with all the grace of a tossed brick. Or, just as likely, you might sputter, lose momentum, and tumble head over heels into a ditch, giving the patiently waiting raptor the perfect opportunity to investigate the contents of your torso at its leisure. Your other defense is your gait on the ground, a loping, four-limbed stride that involves walking on the knuckles of your folded wings. It looks profoundly ridiculous, like a giraffe attempting to impersonate a gorilla, but it grants you a surprising burst of speed. You spend your youth in a perpetual state of clumsy, undignified escape. But survival isn't just about running away. You have to learn to be what you are, a terrestrial stalker. This is another of nature's cruel jokes. You have the wings of a god, but you will spend most of your life on the ground, striding across the plains like some kind of nightmare stork from hell. You have to learn to hunt, and this process is a curriculum of pure humiliation. You are designed to peer down at lesser creatures from a great height and snatch them up with your enormous spear-like beak. But as a juvenile, your aim is atrocious. You try to snatch a lizard sunning itself on a rock, misjudge the distance by a comical margin, and end up face-planting, getting your beak jammed into the hard-packed earth. The lizard, presumably, dies of laughter. You attempt to spear a fish in a shallow stream, only to stab the water with a loud splash, startling every living thing for 50 yards and leaving you looking foolish, wet, and hungry. Every single meal is a test, and every failure is a sharp lesson in your own profound incompetence. You are not a predator. You are an apprentice to a job you never applied for, and the training is brutal. Against all odds, against the raptors, the starvation, and your own staggering ineptitude, you make it. The awkward juvenile phase fades, replaced by a terrifying and absolute majesty. You are now fully grown. The word big is insufficient for what you have become. You are a biological superlative. Your wingspan is over 10 meters, the breadth of a modern light aircraft. When you stand on the ground, Walking on your folded wings and legs, your head is held as high as a giraffe's. You are a living tower of bone and muscle and leathery skin. Your beak, once a clumsy tool, is now a 4-foot-long, razor-sharp spear, a precision instrument of death. And the world knows it. The dromaeosaurs that once tormented you now scatter like mice at the sight of your shadow. Crocodilians lurking in the rivers slide silently back into the water as you approach the bank to drink. Even a young Tyrannosaurus rex, the supposed tyrant king of this land, will give you a wide berth. It might be bigger in bulk, but you are a creature of a different scale, a different dimension. A confrontation would be messy, unpredictable, and you are simply too large and too alien to be considered reliable prey. You have done it. You have climbed the food chain and simply stepped off the top. You are no longer on it. You are above it. You are the apex, the undisputed, uncontested monarch of the late Cretaceous plains. The sky is your dominion. The land is your hunting ground. You stride where you please, your massive head swiveling, your cold, disc-like eyes scanning the landscape for anything that moves. Life has, by every conceivable metric, improved. The constant, gnawing fear of your youth has been replaced by a serene, unshakable confidence. You have achieved the evolutionary jackpot. A warm, pleasant, and entirely false sense of security begins to bloom in your simple, reptilian mind. You have mastered the art of survival. What could possibly go wrong? Just as you settle into your comfortable reign of terror, just as life becomes a predictable cycle of hunting, sleeping, and soaring on the thermals for the sheer, glorious hell of it, a new and far more humiliating problem emerges. It is a biological imperative, a chemical signal that floods your brain and overrides all other instincts. It is the need to procreate. It is the absurd, undignified, and frankly ridiculous burden of mating. This is not some romantic, David Attenborough-narrated courtship. It is a bizarre and deeply embarrassing spectacle. You and the other males of your size and status gather in designated areas, lacking grounds, to perform for the females, who watch from a distance with an air of profound boredom. All your hard-won majesty, all your terrifying presence, is channeled into a pathetic display of showing off. You inflate a garish, brightly colored throat pouch, a ridiculous balloon of skin that makes you look like you've swallowed a child's toy. You clack your enormous beak together, creating a hollow, percussive sound that echoes across the plains. And you dance. It's a stiff, awkward, jerky series of movements, a sequence of head bobbing and wings spreading that looks less like a display of virility and more like a piece of heavy construction equipment having a seizure. You are a 10-meter-wide sky god, a creature of sublime terror, and you are forced to debase yourself in a public dance-off. And what is the grand prize for winning this pathetic contest? What reward awaits the victor of the humiliation pageant? The exhausting, thankless, and utterly draining task of defending a nesting site. The burden of guarding eggs that you have no emotional connection to whatsoever. The duty of providing food for a new generation of screeching, helpless creatures who will immediately view you as nothing more than a meal ticket. You have reached the absolute peak of your power, only to have it immediately undermined by the most pointless and costly of biological burdens. Your throne is a pile of dirt, and your crown is a screaming, hungry mouth you are now responsible for. The years pass. Your reign, which once felt eternal, begins to show cracks. The magnificent machine of your body, a marvel of biological engineering, starts to break down. The very size that was once your greatest asset, your shield against the world, becomes your curse. It becomes a crushing burden. Gravity, an enemy you defeated every time you took to the sky, reasserts its claim. Your joints, which have supported your immense weight for decades, begin to ache with a dull, persistent fire. The elegant, four-limbed vault into the air is no longer effortless. It is a laborious, painful ordeal that requires all your strength, a grunt and a shudder that shakes your entire frame. Landing, which was once a controlled, precise maneuver, devolves into a stumbling, semi-controlled crash. You aim for the ground and hope for the best. Your weapons dull. The razor-sharp tip of your beak, which has dispatched thousands of victims, is now chipped and worn from a lifetime of use. It's a little blunter, a little less effective. Your eyesight, once so keen it could spot a scurrying mammal from 1,000 feet in the air, begins to fade. The world softens at the edges, details becoming a little less clear. You are slower. The powerful stride that once carried you across the plains at an impressive clip is now more of a plod. You are weaker. Younger, fitter males, their bodies at the peak of their power, begin to notice. They don't challenge you in a grand, epic battle for supremacy. That would be too dignified, too cinematic. Instead, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's a war of attrition. They encroach on your territory, your prime hunting grounds near the river. At first, you see them off with a threatening display, a clack of your beak, a spreading of your vast wings. And they retreat. But they always come back. They engage you in petty, persistent squabbles, forcing you to expend energy you no longer have in surplus. They are relentless, their youth a weapon you cannot counter. They are waiting for you to fail, and they don't have to wait long. Your end, when it comes, is not glorious. It is not a climactic tooth and claw struggle against a mighty T-Rex, a final, defiant stand against a worthy adversary. That would grant your life a narrative arc, a sense of meaning. Nature is rarely so kind. No, your final, insurmountable challenge is something far more mundane, far more insulting. It's a badly healed fracture in your left wing metacarpal, the result of a clumsy landing a few months ago. It never quite set right, and now a deep, throbbing ache has settled into the bone, making flight and exercise an agony. Or perhaps it's a persistent infection in your gut, a parasite that has finally overwhelmed your aging immune system, leaving you weak and perpetually drained. Or maybe, most pathetically of all, it's just starvation. You are too slow now. The small, quick creatures you once hunted with ease now evade you. Your hunts fail more often than they succeed. The great engine of your body is running out of fuel. A younger rival, the one who has been watching you for weeks, doesn't even need to land a killing blow. He just has to wait. He stands on a nearby ridge, a perfect, gleaming specimen of what you once were, and simply watches. He watches you struggle to take off. He watches you miss an easy kill. He watches you grow thinner, your movements more labored. He is not a rival. He is an undertaker, patiently waiting for the client to expire. The final confrontation is not a fight. It is an observation. Your death happens on a Tuesday. It's a completely unremarkable day, the sun beating down with the same indifferent intensity it has for the last 66 million years. You are thirsty. You have dragged your aching body to a shallow stream, the same one where you once clumsily learned to hunt. You lower your heavy head to drink, the cool water a small relief. And that's it. A wave of dizziness washes over you. Your legs, which have carried you for so long, finally buckle. You collapse not with a mighty roar, but with a tired, pathetic sigh. You land with a soft thud in the mud and water, too exhausted to even lift your head. You lie there for a while, the world slowly fading, the sounds of the Cretaceous plains blurring into a meaningless hum. And then, nothing. The final indignity begins almost immediately. Your body, this colossal monument of flesh and bone, once the undisputed terror of the skies, does not rest in peace. Within hours, the scavengers arrive. The first are the small ones, the very same species of furry, rat-like mammals you used to hunt for sport. They emerge from their burrows, their twitching noses telling them that the local god has fallen. They climb over your still warm corpse, their tiny claws scrabbling on your leathery hide, and begin to feast. They are soon joined by the dromaeosaurs, the feathered demons of your youth. They tear at your flesh with their sickle claws, their chattering cries a triumphant chorus over your silent, unprotesting form. Even larger dinosaurs arrive, drawn by the scent of blood. Your end is not a funeral. It is a banquet. And you are the main course. The camera of our story pulls away. It rises from your decaying, dismembered corpse, sweeping up and away, back across the sun-scorched plains. It glides over the herds of herbivores, past the stalking tyrannosaurs, and back towards the source. back to the sprawling, chaotic, stinking rookery where your story began. Miles away from the site of your unceremonious end, in a dusty patch of dirt identical to 1,000 others, a small, leathery egg begins to tremble. Cracks appear. A tiny, sticky head, a miniature version of your own, pokes out into the blinding sunlight. It takes its first breath of hot, dusty air, and its own brutal, pointless, and entirely predictable struggle for survival begins. The cycle resets. Nothing has been learned. Nothing has changed. You spent 30 long years clawing, flapping, and stalking your way to the absolute pinnacle of the food chain. You achieved a size and power that was, and will remain, unrivaled in the history of powered flight, all for the singular, ultimate purpose of becoming a slightly larger, more convenient buffet for the very same creatures you spent your life terrorizing. It's a masterpiece of cosmic inefficiency, an exercise in glorious futility. Truly, a life worth living. So, that was your life. A brief, brutal, and ultimately meaningless cycle of struggle, procreation, and decay, all capped by a cataclysmic meteor that wiped the slate clean. You'd think that getting annihilated by an asteroid would be the end of the tragedy. An exclamation point on a miserable sentence. But you weren't that lucky. In what can only be described as a profound cosmic injustice, we're going to pluck you from the fossil record and subject you to a far greater catastrophe. A more prolonged, inventive, and personal extinction event. We're going to imagine your tragedy didn't end 66 million years ago. It just entered its second, even more pathetic act. Your personal tragedy is about to become a historical one. Because you get to meet them. You exist again. But the world is wrong. The air is different, colder. The plants are alien, twisted into shapes your ancient mind doesn't recognize. And there are new creatures. They are small, mostly hairless apes. They walk on 2 legs, their posture unsettlingly upright. They carry sharp sticks and make loud, obnoxious noise with their mouths. When these first humans see you, they do not react with scientific curiosity or intellectual awe. They react with pure, bladder-voiding, soul-shaking terror. You are not a god to them. You are a monster. You are a nightmare given flesh and a 10-meter wingspan, a living embodiment of every primal fear their tiny, superstitious brains can conjure. When your shadow, a vast, cross-shaped blot, sweeps over their pathetic little camp, they don't look up in wonder. They scream and dive for cover. You are the reason they huddle closer to their fires at night, whispering stories of the sky demon that lives on the high cliffs. You are the original, the archetype, the template for every dragon, rock, and winged beast that will ever haunt their collective mythology. But here is the absurdity that will come to define your relationship with this species. They are terrified of you, but they are also perpetually, ravenously hungry. And so, their primitive minds are locked in a constant, frantic oscillation between 2 competing thoughts. The first, that is a demon sent from the heavens to punish us for our hubrises. The second, I wonder if we can kill it with a bunch of pointy sticks and eat it. Your entire identity, your place in this new world, is forged in this bizarre crucible of mortal fear and pragmatic gluttony. You are their first monster, and also their most ambitious potential meal. Of course, they lack the means to hunt you. You are a creature beyond their scale. A frontal assault would be suicide, but this does not mean you are without use to them. They are, above all else, fantastic opportunists. The divine status they grant you is purely abstract. Being the subject of a crude painting on a cave wall, a distorted, fearsome caricature in charcoal and ochre, is the beginning and end of your worship. It does not stop them from erupting in joyous celebration when one of your kind is found dead, perhaps having succumbed to old age or a lightning strike. A dead god is a treasure trove. A dead you is a windfall of unimaginable proportions. Your vast, leathery wing membranes, which once caught the wind, are cut into dozens of hides, providing crude clothing and shelter for an entire clan. Your bones, hollow but immensely strong, are a gift from the heavens. A single wing bone, a metacarpal longer than one of them is tall, becomes the ridgepole for their most important hut. a sacred structure supported by the remains of the very demon they fear. Your sharp beak is broken up, its fragments used as knives and spear points. They worship your power in their stories, but they greedily exploit your corpse in their reality. The gap between being a symbol and being a resource is immediate and absolute. You are useful to them, but only in death. This pattern of unintended consequences continues. You are a creature of vast open spaces, of endless plains and high, lonely cliffs. They are creatures who, with an infuriating persistence, insist on building their little mud and wattle settlements right in the middle of your territory. Your mere existence, your simple act of going about your daily business, becomes a problem for them. You are declared a villain for crimes you are not even aware you are committing. You fly over their nascent village, and the terrifying passage of your shadow causes their new, semi-domesticated livestock to panic and scatter. This is your fault. You land near their pathetic attempt at a farm, a few sad rows of unfamiliar grain, and you accidentally crush a portion of it under your foot, not out of malice, but because you literally cannot see their pitiful agricultural efforts from 50 feet up. This is also your fault. A child wanders too close to your nesting site and is frightened. You are now a child eater. You become a convenient scapegoat for all their failures and misfortunes. A drought. The sky demon is angry. A plague. The sky demon has cursed the land. You are not a pest. You are a walking natural disaster from their limited, self-important point of view, a villain who must be driven away from the sacred land of their new mud hut village. A home that was yours for millennia before they learned to stack rocks on top of each other. And so, the first chapter of your tragic legacy with humanity is written. It's a cynical and predictable story. The ultimate takeaway from this era is that being feared is simply the first step to being hated. And being hated is the most reliable precursor to being targeted. Congratulations. You have managed to transcend nature itself to become the first great monster in their mythology. And your reward for being the most magnificent flying creature the planet has ever known was to become the villain in the bedtime stories of a species that had only just figured out how to not defecate where they slept. The centuries crawl by, and the bipedal apes get cleverer. They stop living in mud huts and start building with stone. Their tribes swell into kingdoms, their superstitions codify into organized religions, and their sharp sticks are replaced by forged iron. In this new medieval and early modern world, your perception undergoes another transformation. You are no longer just a random, terrifying force of nature. You are a symbol to be actively claimed, condemned, or exploited. Your status as a monster is now formalized, given a name in their encyclopedias of the fantastic, and entered into illustrated bestiaries right alongside griffins and unicorns. The difference, of course, is that you are real, which makes you infinitely more problematic. To a king, you are a living emblem of ultimate power, a potential weapon of war, the ultimate status symbol. To the burgeoning church, you are a creature of profound evil, a demon made manifest, a wyvern, a corporeal representation of Satan himself, sent to test the faith of the righteous. You are the dragon that a noble knight must slay to prove his valor and win the hand of some vapid princess. Your existence is no longer your own. It has been co-opted, twisted into a pawn in their games of power and piety. You are a story they tell about themselves, and in their story, you are always the villain. This new age of usefulness is far more systematic and far more miserable for you. They are no longer content to scavenge your corpse. They now want to control your living body. And they try, with a combination of breathtaking arrogance and comical, brutal futility, to domesticate you. A particularly ambitious and deranged baron, inspired by tales of dragon riders, attempts to create a cavalry of Quetzalcoatlus knights. The project is an unmitigated disaster, resulting in a series of very well-armored, but very, very flat noblemen. Your neck alone is longer and more powerful than their entire bodies. The idea of steering you is a fantasy of the highest order. When direct control fails, they turn to imprisonment. Your eggs, once left to the whims of nature, are now priceless commodities. Knights and adventurers are dispatched on perilous quests to your remote nesting grounds, not to slay you, but to steal your young. Hatchlings are captured, their wings cruelly clipped to prevent escape, and raised in deep, stone-lined pits. You, a creature meant to soar on continental thermals, are reduced to a grotesque curiosity in a royal menagerie. You become the star attraction, a living testament to the king's power, displayed for the amusement of visiting dignitaries who gawk at the tame dragon. You are no longer a wild creature. You are property. Your value is measured in gold ducats and political prestige. Your life, and the lives of your offspring, are now line items in the ledger book of some petty, land-owning tyrant. Every scrap of food you are given is calculated, every movement monitored. Your new job title is asset, and it's a life sentence. Their technological progress becomes your doom. For thousands of years, your size and your command of the air were your ultimate defenses. No longer. Their cleverness turns against you with terrifying efficiency. The invention of the longbow and the heavy crossbow means they can now wound you from a distance, peppering your massive frame with iron-tipped bolts. It's not enough to kill you outright, usually, but an infected wound can do what no army ever could. Then comes the true game changer: gunpowder. The first time you witness an arquebus, a loud, smoking stick that spits fire and lead, you don't even understand what has happened. You just feel a searing, tearing pain in your wing membrane. The fight is no longer a contest, it is target practice, and your colossal size has transformed from an intimidating asset into your single greatest liability. You are the biggest, easiest target in the sky. As their empires grow, so does their reach. Their new ocean-faring ships, creaking vessels powered by wind and ambition, allow them to cross the seas and discover lands they never knew existed. For you, this means there is nowhere left to hide. They find your last, most remote island rookeries, your final sanctuaries. And when they land, they don't see a breathtaking natural wonder, a biological miracle. They see an untapped resource, a poultry farm of monstrous proportions. They see a place to harvest eggs and hides not by the dozen, but by the thousand. The slaughter is organized, efficient, and industrial in its ruthless scale, long before the Industrial Revolution has even been conceived. They load their ships with your children, pickled in barrels, and your skins, salted and stacked in the hold. And so, the deeply ironic summary of this age is written in your blood. The very magnificence and power that led them to mythologize you as a symbol of untamable nature was the exact same quality that made you the ultimate prize for their new technologies of death. Your strength was so legendary they built entire mythologies around it. Then they built empires on the back of those myths, and used the wealth and knowledge from those empires to invent sophisticated new ways to kill you from a safe distance. You were a living legend, right up until the moment you became a well-documented, easily dispatched kill. Your tragedy has shifted from one of neglect to one of systematic, focused eradication. The world changes again. The age of kings and knights gives way to an age of science and industry. Smoke now billows from great factories, and iron roads crisscross the continents. In this new, modern world, you are redefined once more. Your demonic aura, the last vestige of their superstitious fear, finally evaporates under the harsh, fluorescent light of scientific inquiry. You are no longer a monster. You are a specimen. You are reclassified, measured, cataloged, and given your proper place in their new, orderly tree of life. You are a living fossil, a biological anachronism, a holdover from a forgotten world. You are interesting, but ultimately irrelevant. But then, as your numbers dwindle to the point of non-existence, you are reborn. Not as a creature, but as a concept. With your population hovering on the very brink of extinction, you become a cause. Your tragic, majestic face, or at least an artist's dramatic rendering of it, is suddenly plastered on pamphlets and fundraising brochures. You become the poster child for their newfound conscience, a symbol of everything they have destroyed. Your image is co-opted to become the logo for an airline, promising majestic service, or a sports team wanting to sound intimidating. And in the most profound insult of all, your terrifying form is sanitized, softened, and turned into a cute, misunderstood character in a children's animated movie, a plush toy with big, sad eyes sold in gift shops. You have been transformed from a physical entity into a piece of intellectual property. Having been hunted, mythologized, and nearly eradicated, you are now assigned your final, most pathetic job: to inspire guilt. After being systematically replaced by their machines and driven from your lands by their progress, humanity, in a fit of sentimental hypocrisy, decides your new purpose is to make them feel bad about what they've done. And then, more importantly, to make them feel good about fixing it. The last of your kind, a handful of breeding pairs, are captured. Not with malice, but with a gentle, patronizing solicitude. It is, they tell themselves, for your own good. Your new career is to be an object of intense study, a living, breathing symbol of humanity's destructive past and their noble, enlightened present. You are housed in a state-of-the-art zoological facility, a living monument to their capacity for destruction and their newfound, highly selective remorse. You are no longer a creature. You are a full-time, professional ghost at the feast of industrial progress, a constant, silent reminder of the price of their civilization. Your usefulness is no longer in your body, but in your story, a story they now control completely. This conservation, from your perspective, is a prison. A gilded, multi-million-dollar cage, but a prison nonetheless. It is a vast, geodesic dome, a marvel of engineering, with climate control, artificial cliffs molded from fiberglass reinforced concrete, and a carefully curated landscape of non-native plants chosen for their aesthetic appeal. It is perfectly safe. It is perfectly comfortable. And it is a profound, soul-crushing violation of your entire existence. You, a creature whose instincts scream for the vast, open skies of a continent, are now confined to circling a glorified greenhouse. You are a sky god grounded in a snow globe. This is the collateral damage of their kindness, the prison of their pity. Tourists, the descendants of the very apes who once feared you, now pay a fee to stand behind reinforced glass and gog. They eat ice cream and popcorn as they watch you. Their children, the ones who own the cute plush toy version of you, tap and bang on the glass, their faces pressed up against the barrier that separates your world from theirs. They take photos with their glowing rectangles, capturing your magnificent desolation for their social media feeds, adding captions like "so majestic" and "feeling humbled." Your life is now managed by a team of specialists in khaki shirts. Scientists with clipboards and tablets follow your every move on a network of closed-circuit cameras. They analyze your droppings for stress hormones. They monitor your mating habits with the intrusive, passionless gaze of a quality control inspector. They feed you. You, who once stalked the plains and hunted your own food, are now fed dead goats and commercially sourced fish, delivered on a predictable, unvarying schedule from the back of a small electric cart. You are cared for with meticulous, scientific precision by the grandchildren of your destroyers, and every clean, sterile, predictable moment is an agonizing, silent scream, a reminder of the endless sky you have lost forever. And so we arrive at the final, most profound irony of your modern existence. It is the ultimate punchline to your 66-million-year-long tragicomedy. After systematically taking everything from you, your world, your freedom, your purpose, your prey, and even the dignity of a natural extinction, they now spend millions of dollars to keep you alive in a comfortable, sterile cage. They do this not for you, but for them. It is an act of absolution. Your survival is now entirely dependent on the sentimental guilt of the very species that ensured you could no longer survive on your own. They took your sky, and in return, they gave you a pension plan. After a history that saw you as a monster, a resource, a trophy, and a specimen, your final role is this: to be a living apology. You are a creature preserved in a state of perpetual, comfortable irrelevance so that your jailers can look at you, look at their own reflection in the glass of your enclosure, and congratulate themselves on their boundless compassion. You didn't just lose the war against humanity. You became their most cherished and expensive trophy for having won it. You are no longer a creature. You are an idea. A sad, beautiful, and ultimately profitable memory of a world they erased. Let's rewind to that first moment, the splintering of your world. The light that pierces your shell isn't just bright. It's an aggressive, painful shock to optical nerves that have known only the uniform red of the yolk sac. It's a physical blow. The air you gasp is your first, and it's not sweet. It's a hot, gritty fist down your throat, thick with the alkaline tang of dust and the overwhelming stench of generations of accumulated waste. This is your welcome, a sensory assault. You struggle out, a wet, trembling mess of limbs and beak, and collapse onto the cracked earth. The ground is hot, unyielding, and covered in the filth of your own species. It's the floor of a vast, open-air abattoir, and you are the newest, weakest inmate. The parent that arrives, the one you instinctively recognize as a source of potential food, is a walking mountain. Its legs are as thick as ancient trees. Its hide a roadmap of old scars and battles you cannot comprehend. When its head lowers, it eclipses the sun. The eye that swivels to your general vicinity is not the eye of a parrot. It's the size of a dinner plate, a perfect, polished orb of amber indifference. It does not see you, the individual. It sees a twitching, generic offspring, one of a dozen it has likely produced and forgotten over the years. It registers your existence with the same level of interest it might afford a peculiar rock. The thud of the carcass it drops is not a presentation. It's a disposal. The message is clear, encoded into this first interaction. Here is carrion. Compete for it or die. My involvement is concluded. It then turns its massive form, and with a few powerful strides, launches itself back into the sky, leaving you in its dust, your entire world once again defined by a desperate, gnawing hunger and the immediate, violent presence of your siblings. The juvenile years are a masterclass in fear. The dromaeosaurs are more than just predators. They are artists of terror. You learn to recognize the specific, high-pitched chatter they use when they've isolated a target. You learn to distinguish their quick, darting movements from the rustle of the wind and the strange, Cretaceous foliage. You see it happen to others. You see a clutch mate, one you pecked at just yesterday over a scrap of meat, wander too far. You see the blur of feathered bodies, a coordinated dance of death. They don't just charge. One will feint from the front, drawing the juvenile's panicked attention, while two others flank, their sickle claws held low, ready to sever tendons. It's a complex, intelligent hunt, and watching it is to understand, in a very visceral way, that you are not just hunted. You are being outthought by creatures a fraction of your potential size. The terror isn't just about being eaten. It's about the cold, intellectual superiority of your would-be killers. Each day is a final exam you have to pass, and the only grade is alive. Your own attempts to hunt are a source of constant, private shame. The instinct is there, a deep, primal urge to stalk and kill. But the execution is a farce. You spend an entire afternoon trying to catch a particularly plump, slow-moving beetle. You stalk it, lowering your head, trying to mimic the lethal precision you've seen in the adults. You lunge, a mighty stab that would fell a small dinosaur, and miss the beetle entirely, plunging your beak 6 inches into a termite mound. You pull back, your face covered in dirt and furious insects, while your intended prey waddles away oblivious. The hunger is a constant, dull ache in your belly, a fire that your incompetence fails to feed. It's a powerful motivator, driving you to try again and again to slowly, painfully bridge the chasm between the lethal weapon you are supposed to be and the clumsy, awkward fool you currently are. This is how you learn, through failure, hunger, and the constant, looming threat of being eaten by something smarter than you. Let's linger on that peak, that moment of adult supremacy. The world doesn't just look different from your new vantage point. It is fundamentally redefined. The ground-level anxieties of your youth are gone, replaced by an Olympian detachment. You stand on a cliff edge. The wind, a force that once threatened to dash you against the rocks, is now your servant. It is a tangible thing, an invisible current you can lean against, a river of air that you own. When you launch, it's not a struggle. It's a surrender to your own power. You fall for a moment, a gut-swooping plunge, and then with a single, powerful downstroke of your enormous wings, you catch the air and rise. The feeling is sublime. The world shrinks beneath you into a map of greens and browns. Herds of ceratopsians are little more than slow-moving pebbles. The mighty rivers are silver ribbons. You can see the curve of the earth, feel the quiet solitude of the upper atmosphere. Up here, there are no raptors, no rivals, no annoyances. There's only the sun and the silence and the effortless glide. When you hunt, it's with this same sense of detached, godlike power. You spot a juvenile hadrosaur that has strayed from its herd. You don't dive in a rush of fury. You circle, patiently, effortlessly, adjusting your position on the thermals, waiting for the perfect moment. Then you fold your wings and descend. Not a frantic dive, but a controlled, deliberate drop. You are a living arrow, a silent, 10-meter harbinger of death. The kill is swift, clean, almost an afterthought. The arrogance this breeds is absolute. You are not just a creature living in the world. You are the master of it, which makes the mating ritual all the more degrading. The beak clacking isn't just a sound. It's a hollow, ridiculous noise, like two giant, mismatched castanets being played by an arrhythmic amateur. It echoes stupidly across the plains. You look at your rivals, other magnificent sky tyrants, and you see your own absurdity reflected in them. There's one, a huge male with a scar across his crest, inflating his bright orange throat sac with a series of wheezing grunts, looking like a medical emergency. Another is performing the stiff, bobbing dance with an intensity that borders on desperate. You are all sublime killers, titans of the sky, reduced to this, a chorus line of awkward, inflatable, noisy suitors. And the female you are all trying to impress watches with the kind of profound disinterest a person might reserve for a glitching screensaver. She is assessing your genetic fitness, and apparently, the key metric is your capacity for public humiliation. It's a brutal demolition of your hard-won dignity, a biological mandate that forces you to prove you are worthy by first proving you are a fool. The decline, when it begins, is a betrayal from within. It starts subtly. A new stiffness in your left wing joint after a long flight. A moment of dizziness when you stand up too quickly. You dismiss it, but it doesn't go away. It compounds. The constant, low-grade pain becomes your new normal. You start choosing your prey more carefully, avoiding anything that might put up too much of a fight, not out of strategy, but out of a secret, gnawing fear that you might not be strong enough. You find yourself resting more, spending long hours perched on a high ledge, not surveying your kingdom, but simply trying to gather the energy to make it through another day. The worst part is the knowledge. You see the younger males, their movements fluid and powerful, their eyes sharp. You see the way they look at you, no longer with fear, but with a calculating patience. Your own body, the vessel of your power, is actively rebelling against you, slowly, methodically, grinding you down into just another meal for the next generation. It's a slow, quiet, and deeply personal horror story. Let's delve deeper into the sheer terror of that first human encounter. From your perspective, they are bizarre. They are small, bipedal, and distressingly noisy. They lack claws, fangs, or any obvious natural weapons, yet they swarm in a way that suggests a misplaced confidence. When you fly over their camp, you are not trying to intimidate them. You are simply moving from your roosting cliff to your hunting ground by the river, a commute you have made 1,000 times. But the reaction from the ground is baffling. A chorus of high-pitched shrieks. They scurry like disturbed ants, grabbing their young, pointing their uselessly small, sharp sticks in your direction. Some fall to their knees and make wailing sounds. It's a complete overreaction. You have no interest in them. They are too small to be a worthwhile meal and too bony to be worth the effort. They are, to you, part of the landscape's background chatter. Yet, they react as if you are the living embodiment of the apocalypse. This fear makes them unpredictable. One day, a group of them might leave a crudely butchered animal at the base of your cliff, a pathetic offering to appease the great sky demon. You ignore it. The next day, another group, perhaps braver or stupider, might try to set a fire near your roost, a futile attempt to smoke you out. Their fear doesn't translate into respect. It translates into erratic, dangerous behavior. You are a god they are desperately trying to kill. The collateral damage is a litany of your perceived crimes, a rap sheet you are entirely unaware of. That time you landed on a soft, muddy bank by the river to rest? You inadvertently collapsed the bank and partially dammed the stream, lowering the water level for their village downstream for 3 days. To you, it was a comfortable nap. To them, you were a malevolent force of geology, deliberately starving them of water. That time a thunderstorm spooked you into a sudden, low-altitude flight across the valley. Your terrifying passage caused a herd of their prized proto-cattle to stampede, scattering the result of months of their hard work. You were just avoiding lightning. They saw it as a calculated act of supernatural sabotage. Your very existence is incompatible with their fragile attempts to impose order on the world. You are chaos, a living, breathing remnant of a wilder, grander age, and they, the architects of fences and farms, cannot abide by your freedom. Every action you take is interpreted through their lens of self-importance and victimhood, casting you as the eternal villain in their heroic struggle against a hostile world. In the medieval world, the attempts to subjugate you become even more pathetic and horrifying. The baron who tries to ride you doesn't just fail. The first saddle they construct is a monstrous thing of leather and iron, designed to be strapped around your torso. It takes 20 men just to haul it into place. The moment they try to tighten the straps, you simply stand up, shake your body once, and the entire contraption, along with several of the men, is tossed 30 feet through the air. The noble knight, chosen as the first rider, is hoisted onto your back, while you are sedated with massive quantities of fermented herbs. When you wake up, you are groggy, confused, and profoundly annoyed by the sensation of a small, armored parasite clinging to your neck. You take off, not in a majestic flight, but in a panicked, stumbling launch, and simply roll over in midair. The knight, weighed down by his own importance and several pounds of steel, plummets with a faint, tinny scream. They never try it again with that particular method, but the attempts get crueler. They try chaining you down, using massive iron links forged in their castle smithies, but you simply snap them by leveraging the immense power of your neck and shoulders. Your untamable nature isn't a sign of your noble spirit to them. It's a flaw in their equipment, a problem to be solved with thicker chains and deeper pits. The prison of modern kindness deserves a closer look. It is a masterpiece of containment, designed by the most brilliant minds in architecture and zoology to be the perfect habitat. And it is, in every way, a perfect hell. The daily routine is a symphony of sterile, managed existence that grinds away at the very core of what you are. Your day begins not with the rising sun warming the cliff face, but with the harsh, artificial glare of sodium lamps flickering to life on a timer at precisely 6 a.m. Shortly after, at 7:15 a.m., you hear the distant hum of the filtration pumps for your personal, chemically balanced pond kicking in. At 8 a.m., the keepers arrive. You watch through the glass as they enter a secondary airlock. They are dressed in clean, khaki uniforms. They don't look at you with fear or awe, but with the brisk, professional efficiency of a custodian. They hose down the concrete floor of your enclosure, washing away your waste from the previous night. The water is recycled, purifying, and reused. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is natural. At 10 a.m., the gates open to the public. The first wave is always the school groups. A river of brightly colored backpacks and shrill voices flows past your enclosure. They press their sticky hands against the glass, their faces distorted masks of excitement. Their teachers read from a plaque on the wall, a neat summary of your tragic existence, sanitized for young audiences. The Quetzalcoatlus was the largest flying animal of all time, it reads. It is now critically endangered, and we are working hard to protect the last ones. You are a living audio-visual aid for a lesson on their own virtue. Lunch is at 1 p.m. sharp. An electric cart, silent and emissions-free, pulls up to a service entrance. A keeper emerges with a plastic bucket containing a dead goat, procured from a farm that raises animals specifically for zoo carnivores. The goat is always the same size, always the same weight. It is placed in the same spot every day. There is no hunt, no struggle, no satisfaction. There is only the quiet presentation of a pre-killed meal. It is sustenance stripped of all meaning. The afternoon is a long, slow parade of more faces, more cameras, more tapping on the glass. You hear the sounds of the world outside, but they are muted, distant. The rumble of traffic, the siren of an ambulance, the laughter of children on a nearby playground. They are sounds from another universe. To break the monotony, the zoo has installed a speaker system that plays a curated soundtrack of natural sounds. A loop of artificial bird calls and the gentle whisper of a non-existent wind. It is an insult to silence. As dusk approaches, the crowds thin. The sodium lamps begin to dim, simulating a sunset that you cannot see. The keepers make their final rounds. The gates are locked. The soundtrack of nature fades out, and you are left alone in the silent, temperature-controlled darkness. You can see the stars through the geodesic dome's transparent panels, but they are hazy, washed out by the perpetual orange glow of the city that surrounds you. They are not the sharp, brilliant diamonds of the Cretaceous night sky. They are a cheap imitation, a reminder of the real thing you have lost. You might live for another 20 years in this perfectly managed, perfectly safe environment. It is a life sentence of kindness, a slow, comfortable death of the soul, administered by the very species that congratulates itself on saving you from the extinction they caused. This is your legacy, a comfortable cage, a guaranteed meal, and the unending, silent agony of being a living museum exhibit. The psychological toll of this curated existence is the final, most insidious form of collateral damage. In the wild, your mind, though not built for complex introspection, was constantly engaged. It was a finely tuned instrument of survival. Every rustle in the brush, every change in the wind's direction, every scent on the air was a piece of data to be instantly processed and acted upon. Your brain was a map of territories, a catalog of prey behavior, a real-time calculator of risk and reward. It was sharp, focused, and alive because a dull mind meant a swift death. Here, in the enclosure, that magnificent instrument is left to rust. There are no threats to assess. There is no prey to outwit. There are no territories to defend. The rich, complex sensory tapestry of the natural world has been replaced by a sterile, predictable, and profoundly boring set of stimuli. The only change in the wind is the whisper of the climate control system. The only new scent is the disinfectant the keepers use. Your mind, built for the savage calculus of the Cretaceous, has nothing to do. And so it begins to turn inward, or rather, it begins to shut down. You spend long hours simply standing, motionless, staring at the painted concrete that mimics the rock face of your lost home. What passes through your mind? Not memories, not in the human sense, but perhaps a ghost of instinct, a phantom sensation of a thermal lifting a wing that is now perpetually at rest. A vestigial urge to scan a horizon that is now just a pane of reinforced glass. It's the neurological equivalent of a phantom limb, an ache for a world that no longer exists. The keepers note this behavior in their logs. They label it lethargy or pacing. They might introduce an enrichment object, a large ball, or a novel food item to stimulate you. It is the equivalent of giving a condemned genius a crossword puzzle. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of the problem. You don't need to be stimulated. You need to be free, and that is the one thing they cannot and will not give you. This mental decay is mirrored in your physical being. Though you are well-fed and safe from predators, your body atrophies. Your muscles, designed for the immense strain of flight and the power of a terrestrial hunt, soften. You carry your weight, but the underlying power is gone. You are a titan in form, but a pensioner in function. When a veterinarian comes for your annual checkup, they sedate you with a dart gun, a distant, painless echo of the arquebuses that nearly destroyed your ancestors. They take your blood, measure your weight, and declare you healthy. You are a healthy prisoner, a healthy ghost. Your body is a machine that is being kept running long after its purpose has been rendered obsolete. The final, crushing irony is your interaction with your own kind. The keepers, in their wisdom, have provided you with a mate, the other survivor. You are supposed to breed. It is your primary function in their conservation plan. You are the Adam and Eve of a world already lost. But the complex dance of your ancestors, the absurd, humiliating, but vital ritual, cannot happen here. The instincts are buried under layers of apathy and confinement. The environmental triggers are absent. The raw, wild energy that fueled that display is gone, replaced by a shared, silent malaise. You and your potential mate are like two ancient aristocrats living out your final days in a gilded retirement home, sharing a space, but utterly disconnected. Your failure to breed is noted as a challenge in the conservation program's annual report. They form committees to discuss it. They try adjusting the lighting, the temperature, the diet. They never consider the possibility that some things, once broken, cannot be fixed. That a creature of the open sky cannot be expected to perform its most vital, instinctual act while under perpetual observation in a cage, no matter how comfortable that cage may be. Your extinction is not just being held at bay. It is being managed, studied, and prolonged in the most compassionate, and therefore most cruel, way imaginable. The relationship they have with you now is the ultimate expression of their own contradictory nature. They cherish you, but only as a symbol. They pour millions into your upkeep, but the money is a form of penance, an indulgence paid to absolve the sins of their collective past. The school children who press their faces to the glass are taught to love you, to see you as a precious, fragile wonder. They go home and sleep under posters of you, a majestic, soaring creature against a dramatic sunset. That image is a lie. It is a fantasy they sell to themselves, a comforting narrative where they are the noble saviors, the guardians of a treasure they themselves almost shattered. The reality is the one you live. The reality is the monotonous drone of the air filtration system, the bland taste of the pre-killed goat, and the blank stare of a creature whose world has been shrunk to the size of a theater stage. The scientists who publish papers on your behavior are not studying Quetzalcoatlus. They are studying a pale, captive-bred echo, an artifact whose true nature can only be guessed at through the fossil record. They are studying the behavior of a prisoner, and they call it natural history. It's like trying to understand the nature of a wolf by only observing it in a dog kennel. They document your decline, your apathy, your failure to thrive, and they interpret it as a puzzle to be solved rather than the inevitable, logical consequence of their own actions. Think of the generations of your kind that lived and died before the apes even learned to walk upright. They faced storms, droughts, predators, and the constant, brutal struggle for survival. Their lives were hard, violent, and often short. But they were their own. Every flight was a choice, every hunt a test of skill, every breath of air a taste of true, unrestrained freedom. Their death, when it came, was part of a cycle. It fed the earth, it fed other creatures, it had a place in the grand, unsentimental machinery of the world. Your life has no such meaning. Your survival is entirely artificial. If your keepers were to vanish tomorrow, you would die. You have forgotten how to hunt. Your wings lack the strength for a true flight. You are utterly, completely dependent on the species that holds you captive. They have not saved you from extinction. They have merely changed its form. They have replaced a swift, honest death in the wild with a slow, lingering, comfortable death in a cage. They call this a victory. And as you stand there, under the simulated sunlight, listening to the looped recording of bird calls, you become the ultimate symbol of the modern age. You are a wild thing tamed, a force of nature neutered, a king dethroned and put on display in the courtyard of the conqueror. They look at you and see a success story, a testament to their power to both destroy and preserve. They feel a sense of pride, a flicker of the same hubris that led them to believe they could conquer the world in the first place. They have taken the most magnificent creature to ever rule the skies and turned it into a pat. A very large, very expensive, and very sad pat. This is not just the end of your story. It is the final, cynical punchline to the story of the entire natural world in the age of humanity. You are the last word in a conversation you were never invited to join, and that word is property.